Yes.
Hi, do you have any advice for aspiring writers?
Advice for aspiring writers. Well, I have some on my website and frequently asked questions. But just to highlight of them, you should write every day. You should read. An aspiring writer should be a voracious reader, not just of whatever you want to write. Whether you want to write fantasy or science fiction, obviously you should read fantasy and science fiction. But you should also read mystery stories and histories and biographies and nonfiction and classics of English literature, because all of these writers and genres have things to teach you. And the more you learn, the better. And the other big important piece of advice I give is to start with short stories. Particularly these days, when books like mine are dominating the bestseller lists and things like that. I meet far too many like 19-year-olds who say, yes, I'm working on my 7-book series that I'm working on. Well, what have you published? Well, nothing, but I'm working on a series. Yeah, it's like saying, I'm going to take up rock climbing. I'm going to start with this Mount Everest. I've heard that's a good rock to climb. Yes, it is a good rock to climb, but it's not a good rock to start with. Start with the hill behind your house. Or better yet, one of those little climbing walls that you find in a mall. That's a good place to start your rock climbing. And for a writer, start with short stories, man. I wrote short stories for 6 years before I published my first novel. I had like 50 short stories in print before I completed and sold Dying of a Light. I learned an immense amount. I did some really good short stories. I did some really sucky short stories. I collected hundreds of rejection slips and learned how to take rejection. I dealt with editors, I was able to experiment and try different techniques. Okay, I'll write this short story in first person. I'll write this one in omniscient viewpoint. This one I'll do limited viewpoint. Everybody sooner or later tries to write a second person short story and realizes why it's a sucky idea. And you try different things and you learn from every experiment. And hopefully you sell some of your short stories, because in science fiction fantasy we're blessed that we still have a viable market for short stories with places like Analog and Asimov's and Magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction, not to mention all these new e-magazines that are booming. And you can build your name out there, which is also very good, because then when you do your first novel, it's not, okay, here's a new novel by someone that I've never heard of. It's, instead it's, oh look, here's the long-awaited first novel by this acclaimed short story writer who's been appearing in all the magazines for the last 3 years. So I think short stories are still the best and optimal way to break in for a new writer in the fields of science fiction.
Going to the Emmys?
Am I going to the Emmys? I don't know. Maybe. I'd like to. We're seeing.
Keep the hat.
The what? The hat, and the hat with my tuxedo and all of that stuff. I went to the Emmys twice, when I was, we were nominated for Beauty and the Beast, which I worked on back in the 80s. Some of you were not born at that time. It's very sad. You're growing old, After Beauty and the Beast went off the air, I used to have attractive young women coming up to me at signings and stuff, and they would say to me, "You were Beauty and the Beast. I loved that show. That was my favorite show. It was great." And that was very nice. But at some point it changed, and now I have attractive young women coming up to me at signings and saying, "You work for Beauty and the Beast? My mother loved that show." So, the passage of years is passing. But it was fun going to the Emmys in those days. It's a black tie event, so you wear a tuxedo and you get a limo, and everybody gets a limo. So you get off the freeway. Your limo driver drives you to the event, and you get off the freeway. And if you're a nominee, I'm talking about, of course, and you wind up in this long line of limos. There's like 300 limos that are creeping forward from the interstate to the venue, where the theater where the Emmys are being held, and they're creeping forward one car length at a time, because each one is pulling up to the red carpet so that the people in the limo can get out and walk in. And in front of the theater, there's immense crowds of fans, and behind the velvet ropes to keep them away. And they're taking pictures and screaming and squealing for all of their fans and their favorite actors and performers as they get out of their cars. So when you finally get to the front of the line, at least this was my experience back in the 80s, and you pull up, it's like, here you are, you're at the red carpet, you're at the door, and thousands of people lift their cameras to their eyes and are poised there. And then the writer gets out and thousands of cameras because of course, they're all waiting for a star. But it'll be thousands of cell phones, so it'll be different from it was in the 80s. But I don't know, the Emmys are September 18th. I may be going, I may not, I haven't decided yet. But I certainly hope we win. I'm very thrilled that we got the 13 nominations. That's terrific. I think we're a long shot in Best Drama, but it's so great for a freshman show up against the competition to be judged one of the 6 best dramas on television. The honor really isn't a nomination, and it would be incredibly exciting if we won. I think Peter Dinklage has a real good chance of Best Supporting Actor, so keep your fingers crossed for that. And we should take on a few in the technical categories. Maybe, who knows, maybe David Dan for writing, or Tim Van Patten for directing the pilot episode, although he's up against this Martin Scorsese guy. So that could be a tough one, but we shall see. All right, one more question, I think, and then we're done here. All right, you there.
Hey, so I have a question about the animals in the series. They play such an important role.
The animals in the series, yes.
Especially like the dogs, the cats, the dragons, everything. Do you have any particular animals that you're especially fond of? Why do they play such an important role? How does that motivate the story? Can you talk a little bit about that?
The direwolves and the dragons are of particular importance in the series. They're kind of more than animals, they're characters. And I know a lot of other animals, horses and bears and shadow cats and et cetera, but it's the direwolves who are bonded to the Stark children and the dragons that Danny has, who have a particular role, and they do have a role. They're more than just wolves, and the dragons, of course, have worked on a symbolic level. They're symbols as well as dragons, so I don't want to get too symbolic here, or people will think they need to study the book rather than read it, but I do mess around with stuff like that from time to time. I'm kind of hard on animals. I know there were a number of people watching the HBO series who at various points said, we're not going to watch anymore, you killed a dog, or we're not going to watch anymore, you killed a horse, or we're not going to watch anymore, you killed another horse. I worked pretty hard on the horses. They were in the Middle Ages too. They didn't sentimentalize animals the way we do. Even animals that were as close to them as their a nice war horse, because the horses died in battle, and they had to harden themselves to that. But for all the members of PETA and the animal cruelty things, let me assure you that no actual animals were killed during the course of our filming. They were all like special effects animals. It was very actually strange after the fourth, I think it was the fourth episode, maybe it was the third episode, where Lady is killed, and also the butcher's boy, Micah, is killed, and we got lots and lots of angry protests about, I'm not going to watch the show anymore, you killed the dog. And a lot of people about killing the kid. Which says something, I'm not sure what it says. Anyway, I think it's time I start to deface your books. Let me say a few things here before we get into that. I know you've all been told the rules here. On my past tours for the books in this series, I have always been able to to personalize your books, to inscribe it, dear Fred, winter is coming, or dear Betty, all good wishes, etc. I can't do that this time, and I haven't been doing this on the whole tour. The lines are just too big. There's just too many people coming, and if I personalize the book for one, then I have to personalize it for everyone. It takes me 3 or 4 times as long to do each book, and the people at the end of the line wind up waiting 6 hours instead of 3 hours, which is a considerable difference. And the last personalization signing I did was in Slovenia about a month or so ago, and it took like 7 hours for me to get through the entire crowd, and 4 people fainted in line, and one of them required medical aid, so, I'm not willing to kill any of my fans, or myself, so I can't do that. I regret it, but it's a necessity. And the same thing is true of pictures. If you want to take a picture of me sitting here, and when you get up to the thing, if you have someone ready with a camera to snap something in that instant, that's cool, but you can no longer come around the table and pose with me and kind of pose pictures, because once again that slows down everything. That takes a long time, and a lot of people start doing it. So please don't, when you come through, I hope you'll understand this. It's wouldn't be my choice, but it's a necessary reality. So don't look at me with big puppy dog eyes. Maybe make an exception in your case, because that would make me sad. That I can't. Some of you may not want to wait for, particularly the people who aren't here in this room, but the people who are out there in the depths of the store, who will be not in this room for hours to come, may not want to wait for 6 hours or 3 hours or an hour and a half or however long it takes me to get through. You should know that I have already signed a large stock of Dance with Dragons, and I have already signed a number of my other books, including Fort Freak, the new Wildcard book, some copies of my older novels, Fever Dream and Armageddon Rag, Windhaven, my anthologies with Bernard Lazois, Songs of Love and Death and Warriors. All of these are down on the first floor. They're already signed, so if you don't want to wait in line 4 hours, all you have to do is go down to the first floor, find the rack where they are, snap one up, and pay for it. Pay for it is a good thing. And you can skip free and go to your favorite restaurant and drink a beer. But if you do decide to stay it out, yes, you can certainly talk to me when you come up. I hope you do, because otherwise it's boring. Just me signing. Don't come up though and say to me, I asked a question, because the answer is yes, but if you say that, you have used your question. So don't, you only have a few seconds here before my handlers will move you along with their cattle prods. So have your question ready, and I'll ask it. And if you don't have a question, tell me who your favorite character is, or where you came from, or anything like that, and I will, respond to that in some way. Probably as the signing goes on, I will be less and less intelligible, but that's to be expected. Have I covered everything? I covered everything, so thanks for coming in, and let's start to facing your books.